Lily, we're going to have to let you go. Effective immediately. Marcus stood behind his mahogany desk, the one I'd helped him pick out 3 years ago when we moved into this downtown office. His arms were crossed, his expression blank, like he was discussing weather patterns instead of destroying someone's life. My hand instinctively moved to the port in my chest, still tender from yesterday's chemotherapy session. The room tilted slightly, or maybe that was just the nausea medication wearing off. You're firing me? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Marcus, I just started treatment. The doctor said I could work remotely during. This isn't personal. He cut me off with the kind of smooth corporate tone he'd perfected over the years. The company needs to restructure. Your position is being eliminated. My position. The head of operations role I created from scratch. The position that had turned his struggling marketing agency into a 7-figure business in less than a decade. My name is Lily Chen, and until 3 weeks ago when I received my stage 3 breast cancer diagnosis, I thought I knew exactly who I could trust. I'm 34 years old, and I'd spent the last 10 years building TechReach marketing from a 2-person startup in Marcus's garage into one of Seattle's fastest-growing digital agencies. Every major client we had, every system we used, every process that made us profitable, I'd built that. I'd created that. Marcus shifted his weight, glancing toward the door like he had somewhere more important to be. Behind him, through the glass wall of his office, I could see our team working at their desks. Jennifer from Accounts Payable quickly looked away when our eyes met. She knew. They all knew this was coming. There's a severance package. Marcus slid a manila envelope across the desk. 2 weeks' pay, continuation of health insurance through the end of the month, and... End of the month? I stared at him. Marcus, my treatment plan is 6 months minimum. I need that insurance. His jaw tightened, the first real emotion he'd shown since I walked into this office 15 minutes ago. I'm sorry, Lily. I really am. But we simply can't afford to carry inactive employees right now. The business is struggling. Struggling. The word echoed in my head. Last month, during our quarterly review, the one that happened 2 days before my diagnosis, Marcus had been celebrating our best quarter ever. Revenue up 43%. 3 new Fortune 500 clients signed. He'd actually given me a bonus check and told me I was the backbone of this company. That was 17 days ago. I built this company with you, I said quietly. I worked 70-hour weeks. I brought in clients when you wanted to quit. I took a lower salary for 3 years so we could hire more staff. I mortgaged my apartment to cover payroll when the Patterson deal fell through. And I'm grateful. His tone was mechanical, rehearsed. But business is business. Something in his eyes flickered when he said that. A quick glance toward his computer screen, then back to me. Too fast, too nervous. That's when I noticed the details I'd been too shocked to process before. The new Rolex on his wrist. The one that cost more than my entire severance package. The framed photo on his desk had changed. It used to be him and his ex-wife at their lake house. Now it showed him with someone else at what looked like a corporate yacht party. I couldn't see the face clearly from where I sat, but something about the woman's posture seemed familiar. Who's your new head of operations? I asked suddenly. Marcus blinked. That's not really... Who is it? We're promoting from within. Rachel will be taking over your responsibilities. Rachel. My stomach dropped. Rachel Winters, my so-called best friend. My so-called best friend. The woman who'd held my hand in the oncologist's office when I got my diagnosis. The woman who'd promised she'd help cover my projects while I went through treatment. The woman I'd personally recommended Marcus hire 4 years ago when she needed a job after her divorce. The pieces started clicking together like a horrifying puzzle. Rachel had been spending a lot of time in Marcus's office lately. Private meetings with the door closed. Lunch appointments that ran long. And 3 days ago, when I'd stopped by the office to pick up my laptop before a chemo session, I'd seen them both leaving the building together, laughing about something on his phone. At the time, I'd thought nothing of it. Why would I? Marcus had been my business partner for 10 years. Rachel had been my closest friend for 6. Is there anything else? Marcus's voice pulled me back to the present. He was already standing, already moving toward the door, already erasing me from his company, from our company. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. The chemo made everything harder standing, thinking, trusting my own body. Just one question. He paused, hand on the doorknob. If the business is struggling so badly that you have to fire me, I said, watching his face carefully. How exactly could you afford that Rolex? That's a Submariner, right? About $15,000? His expression didn't change, but his hand tightened on the doorknob. A gift. From who? That's personal. I picked up the severance envelope, my hands shaking with something that wasn't entirely from the medication. You're right. Business is business. As I walked out of that office for the last time, past the colleagues who wouldn't meet my eyes, past the conference room where I'd pitched our biggest deals, past the coffee station I'd installed with my own money, my mind was already racing. Something was wrong, not just wrong criminal. Marcus wasn't struggling. The business wasn't failing. Something else was happening here, something he needed me gone to hide. I'd been so focused on survival, on getting through treatment, on staying alive that I'd missed the warning signs. But now walking out to my car with my career in a manila envelope and poison in my veins, I started remembering things. Client invoices that didn't match our internal records. Budget meetings Marcus suddenly wanted to handle alone. That new LLC he'd registered last month, TechReach Solutions, almost identical to our company name. The way he'd insisted I take a week off right before my diagnosis, claiming I needed rest, but really getting me out of the office during our annual financial audit. By the time I reached my car, I wasn't crying anymore. I was planning. If you're enjoying this story and want to see how Lily exposes the truth, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because Marcus Donovan had no idea who he'd just betrayed. He thought he was discarding a sick woman who'd be too focused on survival to fight back. He thought 10 years of friendship and partnership meant nothing against his greed. He was about to learn that the woman who built his empire knew exactly where all the bodies were buried. And unlike him, I actually knew how to use a spreadsheet. The only question was, what else would I discover when I started digging? Lily, we're going to have to let you go. Effective immediately. Marcus stood behind his mahogany desk, the one I'd helped him pick out 3 years ago when we moved into this downtown office. His arms were crossed, his expression blank, like he was discussing weather patterns instead of destroying someone's life. My hand instinctively moved to the port in my chest, still tender from yesterday's chemotherapy session. The room tilted slightly, or maybe that was just the nausea medication wearing off. You're firing me! My voice came out smaller than I intended. Marcus, I just started treatment. The doctor said I could work remotely during... This isn't personal. He cut me off with the kind of smooth corporate tone he'd perfected over the years. The company needs to restructure. Your position is being eliminated. My position. The head of operations role I created from scratch. The position that had turned his struggling marketing agency into a 7-figure business in less than a decade. My name is Lily Chen, and until 3 weeks ago when I received my stage 3 breast cancer diagnosis, I thought I knew exactly who I could trust. I'm 34 years old, and I'd spent the last 10 years building TechReach marketing from a 2-person startup in Marcus's garage into one of Seattle's fastest-growing digital agencies. Every major client we had, every system we used, every process that made us profitable, I'd built that. I'd created that. Marcus shifted his weight, glancing toward the door like he had somewhere more important to be. Behind him, through the glass wall of his office, I could see our team working at their desks. Jennifer from Accounts Payable quickly looked away when our eyes met. She knew. They all knew this was coming. There's a severance package. Marcus slid a manila envelope across the desk. 2 weeks' pay, continuation of health insurance through the end of the month, and... End of the month? I stared at him. Marcus, my treatment plan is 6 months minimum. I need that insurance. His jaw tightened, the first real emotion he'd shown since I walked into this office 15 minutes ago. I'm sorry, Lily. I really am. But we simply can't afford to carry inactive employees right now. The business is struggling. Struggling. The word echoed in my head. Last month, during our quarterly review, the one that happened 2 days before my diagnosis, Marcus had been celebrating our best quarter ever. Revenue up 43%. 3 new Fortune 500 clients signed. He'd actually given me a bonus check and told me I was the backbone of this company. That was 17 days ago. I built this company with you, I said quietly. I worked 70-hour weeks. I brought in clients when you wanted to quit. I took a lower salary for 3 years so we could hire more staff. I mortgaged my apartment to cover payroll when the Patterson deal fell through. And I'm grateful. His tone was mechanical, rehearsed. But business is business. Something in his eyes flickered when he said that. A quick glance toward his computer screen, then back to me. Too fast, too nervous. That's when I noticed the details I'd been too shocked to process before. The new Rolex on his wrist. The one that cost more than my entire severance package. The framed photo on his desk had changed. It used to be him and his ex-wife at their lake house. Now it showed him with someone else at what looked like a corporate yacht party. I couldn't see the face clearly from where I sat, but something about the woman's posture seemed familiar. "Who's your new head of operations?" I asked suddenly. Marcus blinked. "That's not really... Who is it?" "We're promoting from within. Rachel will be taking over your responsibilities." Rachel. My stomach dropped. Rachel Winters, my so-called best friend. My so-called best friend. The woman who'd held my hand in the oncologist's office when I got my diagnosis. The woman who'd promised she'd help cover my projects while I went through treatment. The woman I'd personally recommended Marcus hire 4 years ago when she needed a job after her divorce. The pieces started clicking together like a horrifying puzzle. Rachel had been spending a lot of time in Marcus's office lately. Private meetings with the door closed. Lunch appointments that ran long. And 3 days ago, when I'd stopped by the office to pick up my laptop before a chemo session, I'd seen them both leaving the building together, laughing about something on his phone. At the time, I'd thought nothing of it. Why would I? Marcus had been my business partner for 10 years. Rachel had been my closest friend for 6. "Is there anything else?" Marcus's voice pulled me back to the present. He was already standing, already moving toward the door, already erasing me from his company, from our company. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. The chemo made everything harder standing, thinking, trusting my own body. "Just one question." He paused, hand on the doorknob. "If the business is struggling so badly that you have to fire me," I said, watching his face carefully, "how exactly could you afford that Rolex? That's a Submariner, right? About $15,000? His expression didn't change, but his hand tightened on the doorknob. "A gift. From who?" "That's personal." I picked up the severance envelope, my hands shaking with something that wasn't entirely from the medication. "You're right. Business is business." As I walked out of that office for the last time, past the colleagues who wouldn't meet my eyes, past the conference room where I'd pitched our biggest deals, past the coffee station I'd installed with my own money, my mind was already racing. Something was wrong, not just wrong criminal. Marcus wasn't struggling. The business wasn't failing. Something else was happening here, something he needed me gone to hide. I'd been so focused on survival, on getting through treatment, on staying alive that I'd missed the warning signs. But now, walking out to my car with my career in a manila envelope and poison in my veins, I started remembering things. Client invoices that didn't match our internal records. Budget meetings Marcus suddenly wanted to handle alone. That new LLC he'd registered last month, TechReach Solutions, almost identical to our company name. The way he'd insisted I take a week off right before my diagnosis, claiming I needed rest, but really getting me out of the office during our annual financial audit. By the time I reached my car, I wasn't crying anymore. I was planning. If you're enjoying this story and want to see how Lily exposes the truth, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because Marcus Donovan had no idea who he'd just betrayed. He thought he was discarding a sick woman who'd be too focused on survival to fight back. He thought 10 years of friendship and partnership meant nothing against his greed. He was about to learn that the woman who built his empire knew exactly where all the bodies were buried. And unlike him, I actually knew how to use a spreadsheet. The only question was, what else would I discover when I started digging? The first chemotherapy session, after my termination, nearly killed me. Not the cancer. Not the treatment. The panic attack that hit when the hospital billing department called to verify my insurance coverage and found it had been canceled 2 weeks early. "Miss Chun," "We show your policy terminated on the 15th," the administrator said through my phone, her voice professionally apologetic. "Your next scheduled treatment is in 3 days. Without coverage, the cost will be approximately $42,000 out of pocket." I sat in my apartment, staring at the severance check on my coffee table. 2 weeks' pay. $4,300 before taxes. Marcus hadn't just fired me. He'd cut my insurance early, violating the terms of his own severance agreement. Probably hoping I'd be too sick to notice, too focused on survival to fight back. He was half right. I was sick. The cancer felt like fire in my bones some days, and the treatment made me so weak I could barely stand for more than 20 minutes. But fighting back? That was the only thing keeping me alive. I called the hospital back, negotiated a payment plan that would bankrupt me within 6 months, and showed up for my treatment on schedule. While poison dripped into my veins through the port in my chest, I opened my laptop and started digging. TechReach Marketing's financial records weren't something Marcus could completely hide from me. I'd built the systems. I knew every password, every backup server, every hidden folder. And more importantly, I'd always been paranoid about documentation. 10 years of business emails, contracts, client files. I backed up everything to my personal encrypted cloud storage. A habit Marcus had always called excessive. A habit that was about to destroy him. The first thing I found was the TechReach Solutions LLC registration. Filed 6 months ago, with Marcus Donovan listed as sole proprietor. That alone wasn't illegal. People create new companies all the time. But when I cross-referenced the business address, my blood went cold. It was registered to Rachel's apartment. I pulled up our client billing records next, comparing them against the bank deposits in our business account. The Patterson Group, our biggest client, had been paying us $85,000 monthly for the past year. But our account only showed deposits of $50,000, $35,000 every month. For 12 months, $420,000 missing. I checked another client, Sterling Tech Industries. Contract value, $60,000 monthly. Deposits, $40,000. Then Velocity Brands. Then Crosspoint Media. Then Morrison and Associates. Every single major client I'd brought in over the past year showed the same pattern. Invoices sent at full price. Partial payments deposited into TechReach Marketing's account. The rest vanishing into thin air. Not vanishing. Redirected. My hands shook as I pulled up the corporate registration records for TechReach Solutions. It took me 3 hours and a migraine that made my vision blur. But I finally found what I was looking for. A business banking account in the company's name. I couldn't access the actual transactions, not yet, but the account had been opened the same week Marcus registered the LLC. The same week he convinced me to take that vacation, to rest before my biopsy results came back, to let him handle the quarterly financials alone for the first time in 10 years. The nausea from the chemotherapy was nothing compared to what I felt reading those documents. Marcus hadn't just stolen from the company. He'd been systematically embezzling for at least 6 months, possibly longer, creating fake invoices, routing partial payments to our legitimate account to avoid suspicion, and funneling the rest into his private LLC, an LLC registered to my best friend's address. My phone buzzed. A text message from Rachel. "Hey babe, how are you feeling? Miss you so much. Let me know if you need anything." I stared at that message for a long time. 20 minutes earlier, I'd found an Instagram post on her private account, one I could still access because we'd shared passwords years ago, back when we actually trusted each other. The photo showed her and Marcus at a beachfront restaurant in Maui. Posted 4 days ago, the same week I'd been alone in a hospital room receiving my first round of chemotherapy. The caption read, "Sometimes the best things come from unexpected places." 43 people had liked it. None of them were our mutual friends. This was a secret account, a private digital world where Rachel and Marcus could play happy couple while I lost my hair and my livelihood simultaneously. I screenshotted everything. Another text appeared, this time from Marcus. "Lily, I need you to return your company laptop and access badge by end of week. We've already deactivated your email. Please don't make this difficult. Don't make this difficult." As if firing someone during cancer treatment was supposed to be easy. I looked at the laptop sitting on my coffee table, the one that contained 10 years of proprietary client data, financial records, and strategic plans. The laptop they'd given me, but I'd upgraded with my own money. The laptop that legally lived in a gray area since I'd purchased the hardware improvements myself. I replied, "I'll drop it off next week." Still recovering from treatment. His response came within seconds. "End of week, Lily. This isn't negotiable. We have legal right to company property." Legal right. From a man who'd stolen nearly $500,000 from our clients and blamed company struggles for firing me. The fury that swept through me was cleaner than any chemotherapy drug. It burned away the fear, the sadness, the betrayal. What remained was pure, cold calculation. They thought I was weak, sick, defeated. They had no idea I'd spent the last 3 days creating a forensic audit trail that would make a federal prosecutor weep with joy. Bank records, invoice comparisons, email trails showing Marcus instructing our accountant to adjust certain client payments, text messages between him and Rachel discussing their business. I had everything except proof of where the money had gone. But I knew someone who could get that information. My ex-boyfriend James worked as a forensic accountant for the FBI's white-collar crime division. We'd ended things amicably 2 years ago, staying friends despite the breakup. He owed me a favor, a big one, since I'd helped him prepare the financial testimony that closed his first major embezzlement case. Time to call in that debt. But first I needed to secure the evidence. Marcus wanted his laptop back? Fine. I'd give him a laptop. Just not the one containing 10 years of incriminating data. I ordered an identical model online, overnight shipping. While I waited, I cloned my current hard drive, encrypted the backup on 3 separate drives, and mailed 2 of them to my sister in Portland with instructions not to open the package unless something happened to me. When Marcus's identical laptop arrived the next day, I loaded it with basic files, sanitized browsing history, and delivered it to the office personally. Rachel answered the door. She was wearing a designer dress I'd never seen before, her hair freshly colored, her nails professionally done. Behind her, through the glass walls, I could see our team working. My team. The people I'd hired, trained, built careers for. Lily. She pulled me into a hug that made my port ache. "Oh my God, you look so thin. Are you eating enough?" The concern in her voice sounded genuine. Maybe she'd convinced herself it was. Maybe she'd actually compartmentalized sleeping with my business partner and helping him steal from our clients while pretending to care about my cancer treatment. "I'm managing," I said, handing her the laptop. "Tell Marcus I returned everything. He's in a meeting right now, but I'll make sure he gets this." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Listen, I know things ended badly, but I want you to know I'm fighting for you. I told Marcus we should keep your insurance active through the end of treatment. He's just under so much financial pressure right now. Financial pressure? While wearing a dress that cost more than my weekly medication." "That's kind of you," I said, my voice neutral. "How's the new position treating you?" Her face lit up. "It's amazing." Honestly, I never realized how much I'd love operations management. Marcus has been such an incredible mentor. Mentor. Is that what they were calling it? "I'm happy for you, Rachel, really." I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, one question. That TechReach Solutions LLC, is that a subsidiary or a separate entity?" The color drained from her face. "Just for a second, but I saw it. I'm not sure what you mean. The company registered to your address. I saw it on some old paperwork I was organizing. Just curious about the corporate structure." "Oh, that," she laughed, but it sounded forced. "That's just a side project Marcus is working on. Totally separate from our operations here. Our operations." She'd already claimed ownership of the company I'd built. "Makes sense," I said. "Well, I should go. Chemo brain, you know." Hard to focus for long. She hugged me again at the door, told me to take care of myself, promised we'd get lunch soon. All the things a concerned friend would say while stabbing you in the back. I walked to my car, climbed inside, and sat there for a long moment. Through the office window, I could see Rachel walking toward Marcus's office, her body language urgent. Within seconds, he appeared, and they both looked toward the parking lot where I sat. Marcus pulled out his phone. Mine buzzed. Did you make copies of anything on that laptop? I smiled and started my car. Let him sweat. That night, I met James at a quiet coffee shop in Fremont. I brought encrypted drives, printed financial records, and a timeline of discrepancies that would make any forensic accountant's heart race. Lily, he said after reviewing the first folder, this isn't just embezzlement. This is wire fraud, tax evasion, and possibly money laundering. If even half of this is accurate, your partner is looking at federal prison time. It's all accurate. I built those systems. I know every legitimate transaction we should have processed. James flipped through more pages, his expression growing darker. And he fired you when you got sick? The day after my second chemo session. That's retaliatory termination. Also illegal. He looked up at me, concern replacing his professional demeanor. But Lily, going after him means going to war. You're already fighting cancer. Are you sure you want to take this on? I thought about Marcus's Rolex, Rachel's designer dress, the Instagram photos from Maui while I'd been vomiting in a hospital bathroom. The $400,000 stolen from clients who trusted us. The insurance coverage cut short, the dismissive texts, the casual cruelty of erasing me from the company I built. I'm already fighting for my life, I said. Might as well fight for justice too. James closed the folder. Decision made. Then let's destroy him properly. I'll need to bring my supervisor in on this. Start building an official case. But from what I'm seeing here, you've already done most of the hard work. As I drove home that night, my phone exploded with messages. First from Marcus, we need to talk. Call me immediately. Then Rachel. Lily, please don't do anything rash. Let's discuss this like adults. Then Marcus again. Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. You're sick and not thinking clearly. Don't make decisions you'll regret. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything I discovered, creating a timeline so detailed that even a first-year law student could prosecute the case. Marcus and Rachel thought they'd gotten away with it. Thought the sick woman was too weak to fight back, too focused on survival to seek justice. They were about to learn that the person who builds the castle knows exactly where all the structural weaknesses are. And I was just getting started. The FBI moved slower than cancer, but infinitely more thoroughly. James's supervisor, Special Agent Patricia Morrison, took one look at my documentation and immediately opened a formal investigation. But federal cases required airtight evidence, multiple witnesses, forensic banking analysis, and something I didn't have much of: time. We're talking 6 to 8 months minimum before we can move forward with charges, Agent Morrison explained during our second meeting. She was a sharp woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen every financial crime imaginable. Maybe longer if they lawyer up early. 6 to 8 months. My oncologist had given me a 73% 5-year survival rate if the treatment worked. Those odds dropped significantly if I let stress compromise my immune system during chemotherapy. What if we had direct testimony from defrauded clients? I asked. Would that accelerate things? Agent Morrison leaned forward. You have access to the clients? I brought them all in personally. They trust me, not Marcus. Then yes. Client testimony, especially from corporate entities with their own legal teams, would significantly strengthen our case. I spent the next week doing something Marcus never expected. I reached out to every major client I'd signed over the past 2 years. Not to badmouth him. Not to burn bridges. Simply to check in and ensure continuity. Now that I'd moved on to focus on my health, the Patterson Group's CFO, Michelle Torres, was my first call. Lily, I heard about your diagnosis. How are you holding up? Her concern sounded genuine, which made what I was about to do slightly easier. Managing. Listen, Michelle, I'm organizing my medical paperwork and noticed some billing discrepancies in my final compensation. Could you do me a favor and send over copies of the invoices you've been paying TechReach? Just for my personal records. Of course. Give me 15 minutes. When her email arrived, I felt vindicated and furious in equal measure. The Patterson Group had been paying $85,000 monthly, exactly as contracted. But attached to each invoice was a wire transfer receipt showing payment to TechReach Solutions LLC, with a routing number that didn't match our business account. Marcus hadn't even been subtle about it. He'd literally copied our company name, added one word, and started collecting payments directly. Michelle, one more question. Did Marcus ever explain why the payment entity changed? There was a pause. Changed? We've been paying TechReach Solutions since last August. Marcus said it was a restructuring for tax purposes. August. 4 months before my cancer diagnosis. This had been planned long before I got sick. I contacted 6 more clients over the next 3 days. Same story. Same fraudulent LLC. Same fake restructuring explanation. By the end of the week, I documented over $700,000 in diverted payments. Marcus had stolen nearly $750,000 in less than a year. But gathering evidence was only half the battle. I needed leverage, the kind that would make Marcus panic before the FBI could officially move, the kind that would expose his desperation and force him into making mistakes. I found that leverage in the most unexpected place, his marriage. Marcus's ex-wife, Catherine, had called me twice since my termination. I'd ignored both calls, too overwhelmed to talk. But after my 3rd chemotherapy session, the one that left me so weak, I couldn't lift my arms to wash my own hair, I finally called her back. Lily, thank God, I've been worried sick about you. Catherine's voice cracked with emotion. I heard what Marcus did, firing you during cancer treatment. That's unconscionable even for him. You sound like you expected it. Honestly? Yes, Marcus only values people when they're useful to him. The moment I couldn't give him the social connections he wanted, he started his affair with that woman from his gym. She paused. I'm sorry. You're dealing with enough without my baggage. Catherine, did you know about TechReach Solutions? Silence. Then, the LLC registered to Rachel's apartment? I know Marcus tried to hide it during our divorce proceedings. My attorney found it during asset discovery, but we couldn't prove it was actively operating, so it didn't factor into the settlement. My heart rate accelerated. You have documentation? Corporate filings, bank account applications, everything. Marcus claimed it was a future venture that never launched. Why? Because it launched 10 months ago and has processed over $700,000 in fraudulent transactions. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Catherine said, very quietly, that son of a bitch. He told the judge he had no other income sources. He fought me on spousal support, claimed the business barely broke even. I settled for $30,000 total because my lawyer said we couldn't prove otherwise. $30,000, while Marcus had been hiding $750,000 in a secret account. Catherine, how would you like to renegotiate that settlement? I'd like to watch him rot in prison, actually. What do you need? We met the following day at her attorney's office in Bellevue. Catherine brought every document from her divorce proceedings, financial disclosures, asset declarations, sworn testimony where Marcus had claimed poverty while secretly operating a lucrative fraud scheme. Her attorney, a formidable woman named Diane Rothstein, reviewed my evidence with the focus of a surgeon. Miss Chen, this is fraud on the court. If we can prove Marcus concealed assets during divorce proceedings while under oath, we can reopen the settlement and pursue criminal perjury charges. Combined with your embezzlement evidence, we're looking at multiple felonies across state and federal jurisdictions. How long would that take? Weeks, not months. Family court moves faster than federal, especially with fraud this blatant. I felt the pieces clicking into place. The FBI investigation would take months, but Catherine's case could move immediately. And the moment Marcus got served with papers reopening his divorce based on asset concealment, he'd panic. Panicked people made mistakes. Do it, Catherine said, her voice steel. File everything. I want him destroyed. While Catherine's attorney prepared the legal assault, I focused on the second part of my plan. Turning Rachel against Marcus, it wasn't mercy, it was strategy. Rachel knew things I didn't: account numbers, passwords, potentially where Marcus had hidden the money. And more importantly, Rachel was weak. She'd betrayed me for profit and status, not out of loyalty to Marcus. The moment his empire started collapsing, she'd run. I just needed to give her a reason to run in my direction. The opportunity came 3 weeks into my treatment, during a routine follow-up appointment. My oncologist delivered good news. The tumors were responding to chemotherapy.
Not gone, but shrinking. Measurable progress.
I posted about it on social media, the first personal update I'd shared since my diagnosis. Difficult few weeks, but grateful for small victories. The fight continues. Within an hour, Rachel commented, "So proud of you. You're the strongest person I know. Coffee soon?" I messaged her privately. "Would love that." This week, we met at our old favorite cafe in Capitol Hill, the place where we'd spent countless hours over the years planning our futures, sharing dreams, building a friendship I thought was unbreakable. Rachel looked different. Thinner, more makeup than usual, expensive handbag I didn't recognize. She hugged me carefully, like I might shatter. "You look good," she lied. The chemo had ravaged my appearance, hair thinning, skin gray, dark circles that no amount of concealer could hide. "I look like death, but thank you." I ordered tea. My stomach couldn't handle coffee anymore. "How's everything at the office?" "Busy, really busy actually. We landed 2 new clients last week." "That's wonderful." Marcus must be thrilled. Something flickered across her face. Uncertainty? Guilt? "Yeah, he's been working a lot. Stressed?" "About what?" I thought business was good. "It is, but..." She hesitated, choosing words carefully. "There's some legal stuff. Probably nothing, but his ex-wife is causing problems again." There it was. Catherine had filed her motion to reopen the divorce 3 days ago. Marcus was already feeling the pressure. "That's terrible," I said, injecting sympathy into my voice. "Exes can be vindictive, right?" "Catherine is claiming Marcus hid assets during their divorce. It's insane. We've had to hire lawyers, and it's costing a fortune." She'd already merged her identity with his. "Rachel, can I ask you something? As a friend?" She nodded, eager to maintain the pretense of friendship. "Are you sure you know everything about Marcus's business dealings? Because if Catherine's allegations have any merit, you could be implicated too." "Your address is on corporate documents." The color drained from her face. "What documents?"
Tech Reach Solutions.
"The LLC, you knew about that, right?" Marcus said it was just a tax strategy. For estate planning. She was lying, but not confidently. Which meant she knew something was wrong, but had convinced herself it was legitimate. Estate planning usually doesn't involve routing client payments through alternate accounts, I said gently. "Rachel, if something goes wrong, the FBI will investigate everyone connected to that company, including you." "FBI?" Her voice cracked. "Lily, what are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone, showed her screenshots of the invoice discrepancies. Just enough to terrify her, not enough to reveal my full hand. I found these while organizing my medical paperwork. When I noticed the payment routing didn't match our accounts, I got curious. "Rachel, there's over $700,000 missing from client payments. If Marcus set up that LLC to hide money, you're listed as an accomplice." Her hands shook as she scrolled through the images. "I didn't know. He told me it was legitimate. He said he needed my address because his divorce attorney was monitoring his mail." "Did you sign anything? Articles of incorporation? Banking documents?" Just one paper." He said it was a formality. She'd signed corporate documents without reading them. "Perfect. Rachel, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to help you. But if federal investigators start looking into this, and Catherine's lawyers definitely will, you need to protect yourself. Get your own attorney. Distance yourself from Marcus before this explodes. I can't afford an attorney. All my money is tied up in." She stopped, but I'd heard enough. "Tied up in what?" "Marcus and we invested together. In the business. He said we'd be partners." "How much?" $40,000. My entire savings. I had to work hard not to smile. Marcus hadn't just stolen from clients and lied to his ex-wife. He'd also scammed his girlfriend out of her life savings, probably promising her equity in a fraudulent company. "Rachel, you need to get that money back. Now. Before his assets get frozen." The panic in her eyes was exactly what I needed. A panicked Rachel would confront Marcus. A confronted Marcus would make mistakes. And those mistakes would accelerate both the FBI investigation and Catherine's legal assault. I should go, Rachel said abruptly, gathering her things. I need to talk to Marcus. Be careful, I called after her. And Rachel? Get everything in writing. She practically ran from the cafe. I sat there for another hour, sipping tea that had gone cold, watching the Seattle rain streak down the windows. My body ached from the chemotherapy. My port throbbed. I'd lost 12 pounds I couldn't afford to lose, and the upcoming surgery to remove the tumors terrified me more than I wanted to admit. But for the first time since my diagnosis, I felt something other than fear. I felt powerful. Marcus had built his fraud on a foundation of assumptions that I'd be too sick to fight, too traumatized to investigate, too grateful for severance to ask questions. He'd underestimated the woman who'd spent 10 years building systems, creating processes, documenting everything. The woman who knew where every body was buried because she'd helped dig most of the graves. My phone buzzed. A text from James. FB, I just approved expedited review of your case. Morrison thinks we can move to indictment within 6 weeks if client testimony holds. How are you holding up? I typed back. Better than Marcus will be soon. Another message appeared, this one from an unknown number. We need to talk. This is getting out of hand. Marcus, using a burner phone, scared enough to hide his digital trail. I didn't respond. Let him sweat. Let him wonder what I knew, what I'd shared, who I'd talked to. The best revenge wasn't just destroying someone. It was making them destroy themselves while you watched. And Marcus Donovan's self-destruction was right on schedule. Marcus's world began crumbling exactly 36 hours after my coffee meeting with Rachel. It started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. Rachel, in a panic, had pocket-dialed me while confronting Marcus in his office. I answered to shouting. You told me it was legal. Rachel's voice was shrill, desperate. You said the LLC was for tax optimization. It is legal. Catherine's just bitter and trying to. Then why did Lily show me invoices that don't match our deposits? Why are clients paying a company I've never heard of? Why is my address on corporate documents for a business I know nothing about? Lily doesn't know what she's talking about. She's sick, Rachel. The chemo is affecting her judgment. Don't you dare blame her cancer. She built this company while you sat around schmoozing clients. If she says something's wrong, something is wrong. There was a crash, something thrown against a wall. Then Marcus's voice, lower, threatening. You need to calm down. You're overreacting. I want my $40,000 back. Today. Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. That money's invested, Rachel. It's working capital. I can't just liquidate it. You said it was a partnership. You said we'd build something together. And we will. But you need to trust me. Lily's just bitter because I had to let her go. She's trying to cause problems. By showing me your invoices. Your corporate filings? Marcus, I'm not stupid. Then stop acting like it. The line went dead. I sat in my apartment, hands shaking, and immediately forwarded the recording to James. Within 2 hours, Agent Morrison had added it to the evidence file. Rachel's confrontation had given them something crucial. Proof that Marcus had defrauded his own girlfriend using the same shell company he'd used to steal from clients. The dominoes started falling faster than even I anticipated. Day 1. Catherine's attorney filed an emergency motion to freeze all of Marcus's assets pending investigation into divorce fraud. The judge, clearly disturbed by the evidence of concealed income, granted it immediately. Marcus's personal accounts, business accounts, even his car, everything locked down. Day 2. The Patterson Group's legal team, alerted by Michelle Torres after our conversation, launched an internal audit of their payments to TechReach. By afternoon, they discovered the fraudulent routing and immediately contacted the FBI. Day 3. Sterling Tech Industries and Velocity Brands followed suit. 3 Fortune 500 companies, all filing federal complaints for wire fraud. The case that would have taken Agent Morrison 6 months to build was suddenly moving at lightning speed. Day 4. Marcus showed up at my apartment. I just returned from chemotherapy, exhausted and nauseous, when the buzzer rang. The doorman's voice crackled through the speaker. Miss Chun, There's a Marcus Donovan here to see you. Should I send him up? Every instinct screamed to refuse. But I needed to see his face. Needed to watch him try to manipulate his way out of the catastrophe I'd orchestrated. Send him up. He looked terrible. The polished businessman I'd worked beside for 10 years had been replaced by someone I barely recognized. Unshaven, rumpled suit, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. The Rolex was gone, probably seized with his other assets. Lily. He stood in my doorway, hands shaking. Please, we need to talk. I didn't invite him in. Just stood there, one hand on the doorframe, feeling the port in my chest ache from the morning's treatment. You have 2 minutes. I know you're angry. I know I handled your termination badly. But whatever you've told the FBI, whatever you've said to Catherine's lawyers, you need to retract it. This has gone too far. Too far? I kept my voice level. Marcus, you stole over $700,000 from our clients. You lied to a federal judge during divorce proceedings. You defrauded your girlfriend out of her life savings. And you fired me, your partner of 10 years, the day after my second chemotherapy session. I can explain all of that. Please do. I'm genuinely curious how you'll explain the wire transfers. The duplicate invoices. The shell company registered to Rachel's address. The sworn testimony where you claimed poverty while hiding $750,000. His face twisted with something between rage and desperation. You built those systems, Lily. You had access to everything. For all anyone knows, you created those fraudulent accounts. You stole that money and now you're framing me because I had to let you go. I'd expected this. Anticipated it, actually. Which is why I'd been very careful about my digital footprint throughout the investigation. Interesting theory. Except the LLC was registered 4 months before my diagnosis, when I had no reason to steal from my own company. The wire transfers all occurred from IP addresses registered to your home and Rachel's apartment, never mine. And the invoices were sent from your email account, which I haven't had access to since you changed the passwords the day you fired me. I pulled out my phone, showed him a screenshot. Also, I have a recording of you admitting to Rachel that you created the LLC and took her $40,000. The FBI has that now, along with testimony from 6 defrauded clients, your ex-wife's divorce fraud evidence, and a complete forensic audit trail. The color drained from his face. You've been planning this whole time while I thought you were just sick and defeated. You've been building a case against me. You fired me during cancer treatment, Marcus. What did you think I was going to do with all that free time between vomiting sessions? I gave you severance. I tried to be fair. You gave me 2 weeks' pay after 10 years of building your company. You cut my insurance early, violating your own severance terms. You left me with a $42,000 hospital bill while you bought a $15,000 watch with money you stole from clients I brought in. My voice remained calm, factual. That's what made it worse for him. I wasn't emotional, wasn't screaming, just reciting facts like items on a grocery list. Fair would have been letting me work remotely during treatment like we'd discussed. Fair would have been honoring the company we built together. Fair would have been basic human decency. You chose fraud, betrayal, and cruelty instead. Now you get to live with the consequences. Lily, please. He actually got on his knees in my hallway. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But prison? Losing everything? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just tell the FBI you were wrong, that you misunderstood the corporate structure. I'll pay you back. Every penny plus interest. I'll reinstate your insurance, give you equity in the company. Whatever you want. For a moment, just one brief flickering moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered sitting alone in a hospital room, too weak to stand, watching my bank account drain while he posted photos from Maui with my best friend. I don't want your money, Marcus. I want justice. Justice? He laughed bitterly, still on his knees. You want revenge. This is about punishing me for the affair, for choosing Rachel over you. This isn't about Rachel. This isn't even about you firing me. I leaned down so we were eye level. This is about $700,000 you stole from clients who trusted us. Companies that paid in good faith for services rendered. You didn't just betray me, Marcus. You betrayed everyone who ever believed in tech reach marketing.
And someone needed to stop you before you destroyed everything we built. I stood up, opened my door wider. Your 2 minutes are up.
The FBI would like to speak with you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Agent Morrison will send the formal request tonight. I'd suggest you hire a good attorney. You're going to need one. Lily. Goodbye. Marcus. I closed the door in his face and immediately collapsed against it, heart racing, legs shaking. From the hallway, I heard him slam his fist against the wall, heard him curse, heard him finally walk away. Then I called James. He just left my apartment. Tried to get me to retract my testimony. Did you record the conversation? I held up my phone, still running the voice memo app. Every word. Lily Chen, you're a federal prosecutor's dream witness. Morrison wants to move forward with charges next week.
We have everything we need. Client testimony, financial records, that recording of Rachel. And now Marcus attempting to obstruct justice by asking you to lie to federal investigators. What's he looking at?
Wire fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, divorce fraud, and now witness tampering. Conservatively? 15 to 20 years federal prison.
Plus restitution to all defrauded parties, which will bankrupt him completely. 15 to 20 years.
The same amount of time I'd need to be considered cancer-free if my treatment succeeded. What about Rachel? She's cooperating. Gave us access to her bank records, email correspondence, everything. Claims Marcus manipulated her, which, honestly, the evidence supports. She probably faced minimal charges in exchange for testimony. Rachel would walk away with a slap on the wrist while Marcus burned. Part of me hated that.
But the larger part understood that Rachel had been a pawn, easily manipulated by someone more ruthless. Marcus was the architect of this fraud.
He deserved the full weight of justice. The news broke 3 days later.
Seattle marketing CEO arrested on federal fraud charges, screamed the Seattle Times headline.
By noon, every local news station had picked up the story. By evening, it had gone national. The details were damning.
$700,000 in client theft. Divorce fraud.
A cancer-stricken business partner fired to cover up the scheme. The story had everything: corporate betrayal, medical cruelty, a dramatic FBI investigation. If you're following Lily's journey and want to see how this story ends, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. My phone exploded with messages. Former colleagues expressing shock. Clients thanking me for exposing the fraud.
Industry contacts offering job opportunities when I was ready. Even a few interview requests from journalists wanting the insider story. I ignored most of them. But one message stood out, from Michelle Torres at the Patterson Group. Lily, our board reviewed your role in exposing this fraud. We'd like to offer you a consulting position with full benefits coverage, including comprehensive medical. Remote work, flexible hours, your own rate. We know you're fighting for your health, but we want you to know you'll always have a place with us when you're ready.
Thank you for your integrity. I cried reading that message.
Not sad tears, grateful ones.
The company I'd nearly died protecting was protecting me back. The final piece of justice came 2 weeks later, when Marcus's preliminary hearing was broadcast on local news.
I watched from my hospital bed, recovering from the surgery to remove my tumors. The operation had been successful, margins clear, no visible spread. My oncologist was cautiously optimistic.
On screen, Marcus stood before a federal judge in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, looking nothing like the confident businessman who'd fired me in his mahogany desk office.
The prosecutor laid out the charges: 19 counts of wire fraud, 7 counts of tax evasion, 3 counts of obstruction of justice. The evidence was overwhelming: my documentation, client testimony, banking records,
Rachel's cooperation, and Marcus's own recorded admission. The judge denied bail.
Given the defendant's demonstrated pattern of deception, access to potentially hidden assets, and flight risk,
I'm remanding Mr. Donovan to federal custody pending trial. Marcus's attorney tried to object, but the judge cut him off.
Your client stole from major corporations, defrauded his ex-wife under oath, and fired a cancer patient to cover his crimes?
He'll await trial in jail. As they led Marcus away,
the camera caught his face, the exact moment he realized his old life was gone forever. The business, the money, the status, the freedom. All of it erased by his own greed and cruelty. I turned off the television and looked at the flowers covering my hospital room. Arrangements from former clients, colleagues, even a massive bouquet from Catherine with a card that simply read, "Justice, finally." My phone buzzed. A text from Agent Morrison. Prosecution offering 20-year plea deal. Marcus's attorney is advising him to take it. Thought you'd want to know. 20 years. He'd be 62 when he got out. His business career would be over. His reputation destroyed. Everything he'd valued about himself, the success, the power, the image, gone. And me? I'd be 54 if I survived. I'd hopefully be cancer-free, building a new career, living a life Marcus had tried to steal from me. The difference was, I'd earned my second chance. He'd just thrown his away. 18 months after my diagnosis, I stood in front of a mirror in my new apartment, running my fingers through hair that had finally grown back. Shorter than before, with unexpected silver streaks the oncologist said were common after chemotherapy. But mine. My body. My life. Still here. The port in my chest was gone, removed 3 months earlier after my final clear scan. No evidence of disease, my oncologist had said, those 4 words more valuable than any salary I'd ever earned. The cancer wasn't gone forever. It could return. Remission was never guaranteed, but today, this moment, I was healthy. My laptop pinged with an incoming video call. Michelle Torres from the Patterson Group, now my biggest consulting client. "Lily, how's the new office setup?" I panned my camera across the home office I'd designed: standing desk, ergonomic chair, windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Perfect. Ready to present the Q4 strategy tomorrow. Excellent. Oh, before I forget, the board approved your proposal to expand our partnership. We're bringing you on as Chief Strategy Consultant with a 3-year contract. Full benefits, profit sharing, the works. Congratulations. After we hung up, I sat back and let the reality sink in. 2 years ago, I'd been dying from cancer and professional betrayals simultaneously. Now I ran my own consulting firm with 5 Fortune 500 clients, made 3 times what I'd earned at TechReach, and worked from home on my own schedule. I'd built something better from the ashes Marcus had tried to leave me in. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Former Seattle CEO sentenced in massive fraud case. I clicked through to the article, knowing what I'd find but needing to see it anyway. Marcus Donovan, 36, was sentenced today to 22 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years supervised release for his role in a complex embezzlement scheme that defrauded multiple corporations of over $700,000. Judge Patricia Hernandez called Donovan's crimes a betrayal of trust at every level and noted his complete lack of remorse as an aggravating factor in sentencing. 22 years, more than the prosecution had asked for. The judge had thrown the book at him. The article continued. Donovan must also pay $847,000 in restitution to defrauded clients and his ex-wife, whose divorce settlement was based on fraudulent financial disclosures. With legal fees and penalties, experts estimate Donovan's total liability exceeds $1.2 million money he no longer has access to after federal asset seizure. I scrolled to the courtroom photo. Marcus looked hollow, aged a decade in 18 months. The expensive suits were gone, replaced by prison khakis. The confident smile had been erased by the reality of what he'd done. According to the article, he'd tried to speak at sentencing, to explain himself, but the judge had cut him off. "Your victims have spoken, Mr. Donovan. 7 corporations. 1 ex-wife, 1 former girlfriend, and the business partner you betrayed while she fought cancer. I've heard enough." Rachel had testified against him as part of her plea agreement. She'd received 2 years probation and community service lenient, but fair given her cooperation and genuine ignorance of the full scope of Marcus's fraud. Last I heard, she'd moved to Portland, changed careers entirely. We hadn't spoken since the trial. Probably never would. Some betrayals didn't deserve forgiveness, even if they came wrapped in manipulation. Though Catherine had become an unexpected friend, She'd used her divorce settlement recovery to start a nonprofit helping women navigate financial abuse in marriages.
We'd had lunch last month, two survivors who'd refused to let Marcus Donovan define their futures. You know what the best part is? Catherine had said over coffee.
He tried to make us both feel worthless, like we were the problem. And instead, we're thriving while he rots in a cell. That's real justice. She was right. But it was more than justice. It was proof that cruelty doesn't pay dividends the way Marcus thought it would. A knock at my door pulled me from the article.
I opened it to find a delivery person holding an enormous arrangement of white orchids.
The card read, "To Lily Chen, the only person who ever truly built anything at TechReach. Congratulations on your clean bill of health. Here's to the next chapter." The Patterson Group executive team. I set the flowers on my desk, their elegance a stark contrast to the mugshot of Marcus still on my computer screen. One of us had chosen to create, to build, to contribute value to the world. The other had chosen to take, to deceive, to destroy what others had made. We'd both gotten exactly what we'd earned. My calendar reminded me I had a call scheduled in 10 minutes, a cancer survivor support group.
I'd started facilitating online. 15 people from across the country, all fighting their own battles while dealing with professional setbacks, financial stress, relationship betrayals.
I'd learned something profound during my treatment. Cancer wasn't my only fight. The real battle was refusing to let cruelty, whether from disease or from people, define my worth or limit my future. Before logging into the call, I checked my email one last time. A message from James, the FBI forensic accountant who'd helped build the case against Marcus. "Lily thought you'd want to know that our division is using your documentation process as a training example for financial fraud investigations. Your attention to detail probably saved us 6 months of work. Thank you for being meticulous, even when you were fighting for your life.
You're one of the good ones." I smiled. Being one of the good ones didn't pay as well as being ruthless.
It didn't come with shortcuts or easy wins. But it came with something Marcus would never have: the ability to look in the mirror without shame. That evening, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset over Puget Sound, a glass of wine in my hand, the first alcohol I'd allowed myself since chemotherapy ended. My body was my own again. My career was thriving.
My conscience was clear.
Marcus was in a federal prison cell, his life reduced to a number in an 8x10 space.
He'd lost his company, his freedom, his reputation, his money, his relationships, everything he'd valued about himself.
And he'd lost it all because he'd tried to destroy the woman who'd built his empire.
I thought about the younger version of myself, the woman who'd worked 70-hour weeks to help someone else's dreams succeed. The woman who'd believed that loyalty and hard work would be rewarded. The woman who'd learned the hardest way possible, that not everyone deserves your sacrifice.
If I could talk to her now, I'd tell her this: your value isn't determined by who appreciates it. Your worth isn't diminished by who betrays it. And your future isn't limited by who tries to steal it. I'd tell her that cancer would make her stronger than she ever imagined.
That betrayal would teach her to trust her own instincts.
That losing everything would show her exactly what she was capable of building from nothing.
Most importantly, I'd tell her that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy.
It's building a life so successful, so meaningful, so full of genuine achievement that their cruelty becomes irrelevant.
Marcus Donovan tried to erase me when I was at my weakest.
He thought a sick woman couldn't fight back, couldn't expose him,
couldn't survive without the company we'd built together. He was wrong on every count. I survived the cancer. I exposed his crimes.
I built something better than TechReach ever was: a career based on integrity instead of fraud. Success earned through competence instead of theft. And him? He got exactly what he deserved: justice served cold, thorough, and permanent. As I finished my wine and headed inside to prepare for tomorrow's client presentation, I thought about the moral of my story. Not the one about fighting cancer, though that battle had been real and terrifying. Not even the one about exposing corporate fraud, though that had been necessary and right. The real lesson was simpler. When someone shows you who they are through cruelty, believe them. Then document everything, protect yourself, and build something so undeniably successful that their betrayal becomes just a footnote in your much larger story.
Marcus Donovan had been my business partner for 10 years, my betrayer for 18 months, and my cautionary tale forever. But me? I was Lily Chen, cancer survivor, fraud whistleblower, successful consultant, and living proof that the people who try to bury you don't realize they're planting seeds. I hope this story resonated with you and reminded you that integrity always wins in the end, even when the path is difficult. If you've experienced something similar or learned something valuable from Lily's journey, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, subscribe to see more real-life tales of justice, resilience, and the kind of revenge that comes from simply refusing to be defeated. Because the truth is, people like Marcus exist everywhere, in offices, in relationships, in families. They take credit for what others build. They discard loyalty when it's no longer convenient. They mistake kindness for weakness. But they always underestimate one crucial thing: the strength of someone who has absolutely nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. That was my advantage. That's always been the advantage of the underestimated. And 22 years from now, when Marcus Donovan finally walks out of federal prison as a 60-year-old felon with no career, no reputation, and no one waiting for him, I'll be 76 years old, hopefully retired after a successful consulting career, surrounded by people who earned their place in my life through character instead of convenience. The difference between us won't be what we lost. It'll be what we chose to build after everything fell apart. I built a legacy. He built a prison sentence. In the end, we both got exactly what we constructed.